Okay, Jiabin, let's take a look at this essay about domestic and international travel, its benefits and disadvantages. Let's see what you said here. Domestic and international traveling are becoming increasingly prevalent throughout the world. This essay will discuss both the benefits and drawbacks of this phenomenon using examples from, careful with your typing, Thailand and Indonesia to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay. Fine so far. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that traveling can improve a person's language ability and boost a country's economy. Firstly, international travel. You keep saying traveling, but you could have really just used travel in all of these cases. So look. Firstly, international travel enables language learners to expose themselves to a foreign language environment. This exposure has been proven to be an effective method of language acquisition. Secondly, tourists can contribute a lot to the economic development of their destinations. For example, let's see. Okay, recent empirical research by the Thailand government, it should be Thai government, shows that tourism represents 1/3 of its GDP in the year to 2019. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that traveling, regardless, I think here would have been whether international or domestic. That would have been a better way to say this. Let's try it. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that traveling, whether domestic or international, has positive impacts on one's ability development and an area's economic prosperity. Okay? Fine. Nice. Not super developed. I think I've seen other essays from you in the last handful of essays we've done together that were more developed. I feel like you kind of were a little more reserved, a little more conservative with this one. I mean, it's nice, but it's just not super developed, okay? So let's move on. On the other hand, there also are adverse consequences of the growing popularity of travel. Firstly, the problem of air pollution can be significantly worsened. This is largely because people often travel domestically, driving private vehicles, or travel to foreign countries by airplanes. A large amount of, carbon dioxide and other toxic gases, which are widely recognized as the major contributors to air pollution, will be emitted as a result of their travel. Secondly, irresponsible travelers often cause environmental problems to local society. For instance, in Indonesia, the total expenditure on cleaning marine litter produced by tourists is at $10 billion. Therefore, it is possible to state beyond doubt that traveling has negative implications for a nation's air quality and environmental wellness. Okay, fine. To conclude from the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe there are both benefits and drawbacks behind this trend. Only when more tourists travel responsibly can its negative influences be mitigated. All right, that's lovely. I like that word, mitigated. You had a few like this. I liked language acquisition. Some of these expressions are very nice. So some nice high-level collocations and vocabulary use. So good job there. I thought you did very well. You could see that I got through your essay really quickly. I didn't really struggle with anything. I thought that it could have been a little more developed. Now, it's not that there was anything wrong with it, but because I know you're aiming for one of those higher scores, I thought that there was a little more depth you could have added to some of your arguments. Now, in your previous set, we talked about these front position linkers. I saw today that you didn't use as many. You did use a few. Look, you've got firstly, and then you've got secondly, and then you've got for instance, and then you've got therefore, but it's not like constant. However, look at this. Here, firstly, secondly, for example, therefore. So now, why is that a problem? Because it's pretty identical. You're not really using a range of linkers. Okay, so if you have to use them, at least make sure that you're going to vary them a little bit. You don't have to use firstly and secondly in both paragraphs, okay? And even the same thing with the therefore. Even your last sentence, therefore. You have to break it up a little bit. You have to try using some of these other linkers that, do the same job, but just show some variety here, okay? So those are the two things, your cohesive devices, your linkers, and I just wanted it a little more developed, a little more, because I know you can do it. All right, so let's now take a look at your task 1, movie preferences. Let's see what you wrote. The bar chart shows movie preferences of youngsters throughout the world across 6 types, namely action, animation, comedy, drama, horror, and romantic. Okay, my one concern is with the word youngsters, which implies children. They never said that they're children. They said that they're young adults, so we should assume that they're over 18, but they're also not like, 40. So they're younger than that, young adults. But youngsters, I don't believe is entirely appropriate because it refers to children. Okay. So moving on. Comedy is the most popular movie for both genders, with popularity at 145 and 137 for males S and females S, respectively. Romantic is young women's second favorite film type. Get rid of the. Romantic is young women's second favorite film type. However, it is the least popular type for young men. Perfect. The figure for these films for women is 116, which is nearly 4 times as much as that for men. Action films are the second most, careful, popular movie for male young adults, with the figure at 137, whereas this figure for the females S is only around half of that at 82. Lovely. The least preferred movie type for female young women, or for young females, you could have said, is animation, just reaching 54, while the number for males S is 63. It is interesting to note that the figures of preference for drama and horror movies for both genders are between 63 and 86. While females find drama more attractive, males find horror more interesting. Perfect. To summarize, all the young audiences with an S of both gender nominate. Okay, you could have said young audiences of both genders nominate comedy films as their favorite preferences. For the other 5 types vary a lot between genders. This was really well done. I thought you handled this very well. Were there a couple little mistakes? Yeah, there were, but there wasn't anything really that I found particularly problematic. I liked the way you organized this. I didn't even have to look at the chart. I understood what you were doing. You did something that I usually find doesn't work. You talked about the men and the women in the same paragraph, but you did it in such a way that I found it really rather successful. So I was happy with it. As far as I could tell, you covered all the types. I'm pretty excuse me, 100% positive you did. But I thought you did it really well. So I was very happy with it. Just be careful with some of those little grammatical things. I know that you absolutely fixed some of the other ones that we have talked about before. So you did very nicely with this. You should feel very good about it. Okay? So go ahead and let's see another set from you. And I'll be waiting for it. Good luck.